Hey, everybody. Welcome to Dear Asian Americans. This is your host, Jerry Wan. Wherever you are, whenever you are listening to this, we wish you all the health, happiness in the world. It's a challenging time right now for everybody as we're staying at home mostly. If you aren't staying home, please stay home. And spending a lot of more time with our families and spending a lot of more time thinking about a lot of different things. Um, if you're listening to this in order that the episodes were released, you listened to Ted's show just before this. And so we have his
Mm.
brother on, Young. And if you're just a big fan of Young, and if you just had to listen to him first, that's okay. And so we're trying something very fun and different here on the show this week. We're going to interview the two brothers separately and talk and get their own take on life growing up in the Kim family. And
Mm.
then we are going to bring them together in the next episode after this. And I don't know, have a brotherly hug fest or a brotherly fight. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we want to learn Young. We want to learn about Young in his own words. Young, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's do a quick bio and intro. And I think most folks know you now as the founder and one of the owners of Seoul Sausage, which has been in operation for 8 years.
Mm.
You started that with your brother and another friend 8 years ago, and in an interesting way, which we'll talk about. But you didn't start out as a sausage guy growing up, right? So you had different ambitions, and you actually went to school to study business, and then started out in a different career, which maybe it's correlated, maybe it's not, but very similar to what your brother did professionally, and then ended up
Sure.
starting a business together. Let's learn about you in your own words. And so tell me about the earlier years of Young's life. How did the Kim family move to America? Where did you guys move to, and what were your early years like?
Yeah. So I never wanted to be a sausage guy when I was young. I never had those kind of plans. But I came with my brother to America through a company called Samsung, and my father was selected as like one of the first engineers to kind of open up a Silicon Valley branch. And so we actually came legally through like a visa and work permits, and we got started in our life got started in Santa Clara, um, and we grew up in the Bay Area, and we moved to a town called Cupertino. A lot of people don't know what Cupertino is until Apple and iPods came about, but Cupertino is a small little city south of San Jose, like a little bit north of San Jose, south of San Francisco, and very small, kind of like high tech, kind of bubble city.
Mm.
Everybody is a little sheltered there. I think our childhood was very safe, and we weren't like filled with a lot of gangs or anything, but just a lot of engineering fathers and mothers there.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we had a pretty good childhood. We did our elementary school, we did our t-balls, we did our little leagues, we did all the normal stuff kind of kids did when they grew up. Um, and I guess we had a pretty sheltered life until college. College is when I met first like ethnic kind of. I saw diversity. I truly
Mm.
saw diversity because San Jose was just mostly Asians and Caucasians, to be
Mm.
honest. And so it opened my eyes. It was the first time I really saw diversity.
I think
Yeah,
it's minority. The words minority and diversity are very, very relative. Although I think, unfortunately, in America, sometimes we see them as very objective terms. Um,
sure.
where Asian Americans are only the minority in America because the denominator looks different. If you look at it from a global scale, we may not be the minority. And of course, diversity is fine. San Jose, Cupertino, and Fullerton, where I grew up, were diverse populations,
Hmm.
except they sent home letters in English and Korean. So was that really diverse as far as we were concerned? Probably not,
Right.
right? Talk
Right.
to me about growing up with Ted. You are 2 years older than Ted. Um,
Hmm.
did you guys do everything together? And if not, how did you guys find your own identity and sort of independence growing up in the same household?
Yeah. My brother had to be tagged along to any of my friend functions, and so my brother was always around. But at the time, I was like, "Mom, why do you always make my brother go to sleepover with me?" So he would follow me everywhere, and then it turns out that my mom wanted some alone time after all these years, and so he followed me around everywhere. And obviously, like I wasn't annoyed by it or anything, but we just were always together. My mom always wanted us to do things together. And, they said that, your brother's all you have in America, you got to rely on him, in the future when we're gone. Funny, right? So he came along everywhere. But he's after we kind of got into high school, he had his own circle of friends, obviously, and we had our own little kind of groups. But Ted was definitely the more cooler one. I think I was in a band. I played the trombone. I was in marching band. I was definitely kind of like the nerdy one, I guess. But yeah, I mean, my brother and I were just always kind of just stuck at the hip, I guess. We didn't really fight that much. And when we were growing up, he was a good kid. He was really good to me. So we were actually like the exemplary Korean brothers that actually got along. A lot of my friends, they just didn't get along. So me and my brother, we actually got along. So we had a really good relationship from the start.
Yeah, I wanted more drama on the show, but I guess you guys get along. Just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get along now. It's all the business that just gets
Yeah,
entangled.
no,
That kind of but yeah, I mean, growing up, we got along well. Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
yeah, it is.
Uh, let's go to San Diego. How did you end up in San Diego, and what motivated you to study what you did? And tell me about some of the things
Hmm.
you did outside of class down there.
Yeah, so I kind of touched upon. I was like, kind of like, I wasn't like a straight A student, but I got pretty good grades, and I was like, I didn't get into too much trouble, and I always kind of had this idea of like, who was I, my identity, in high school, and after I got to college, I wanted to um, really represent like Asian American. Like I joined a band with a couple of my buddies. We were all in an all Korean kind of like this punk band, and so I kind of just went away from academia and went more into like the culture side.
Mm,
So we toured with like Far East Movement and like MC Jin, and we did that scene for a little while, and I was really the first time I felt like I was like myself, very, very, I got a lot of confidence through that. I got a lot more friends, and my network grew because of that, and some of them that I still keep in touch with to this very day. That has helped me in my current business, actually. So
mm.
um, so yeah, college was great because UCSD, as the first 2 years, I was just kind of getting to know myself, and I was this fish out of water from this bubble Cupertino town. But we got to travel the country through the band, and I think that's how I kind of eventually met you and all these other like very passionate um, folks, kind of surrounding like the Asian American community per se.
Tell me more about you choosing to do music early on in life, because your father, as you mentioned, engineer at one of
Hmm.
the biggest Korean company. It's very strict, and the world that our parents grew up in Korea was follow this formula, go to this school, study
Right,
that, and
right,
then at the end
right,
of it is this magical world of success and stability. And
right.
yet, though you went to a prestigious university, music was sort of your passion, it seems like, and now we know what you do, and it's definitely a creative field.
Hmm.
How did you manage the balance of what you grew up with in the environment that was prepared for you, and then choosing to
Hmm.
do music serious enough to create a band and to tour and to pursue it more seriously than most people do?
Yeah, I think me being a good kid until college kind of shackled me into like just wanting to rebel in a way, right? Um, like I didn't get into much trouble. I didn't really do anything bad, and so like when I got a taste of music and just being just creative
Mm,
and with like-minded people, I was just like a guy that just broke free from jail, right? I was like, oh man, I want to put everything. I want to go with this band, and so part of that was a good thing, right? You're like blindly following your dreams when you're young, but funnily enough, those doors open new doors. And so
mm.
I knew I always wanted to do business. I always wanted, like, got that entrepreneur bug from my dad, and he, put that in me and my brother. So I always knew I wanted to do something by myself. I didn't want to work for anybody,
Right.
but music took me there where I could like create something on my own, and I really was drawn to that. And yeah, so I think the first like real adult life and the taste of that, um, I loved it because like I said, I could forge my own destiny. Um, we're hanging out with people that were trying to change the world, especially like in the Asian American community,
Mhm.
and that kind of just got my thirst, you know, uh, like even sharper for that route almost.
Sure.
Just being a non-typical Asian because there's so many of us in Cupertino that were just engineers and doctors, and I just didn't want to be that. I came from a world of that,
Mm.
so I just wanted to do something that just was going in the opposite direction. If that makes any sense.
No, it makes complete sense. But
Yeah.
when did you realize that it didn't have to be so binary, right? Because you were living your day life sort of as a college
Mhm.
student pursuing higher
Mhm.
education,
Mhm.
and it's really, if we look at other similar Asian American musicians in our circles, right? Like James from Far East finished freaking law school when he was touring.
Yeah.
Like that's
Right.
still important to us. That still matters that we don't drop out of school. I mean, look at Ken Jeong. He not only did not drop out of medical school, he was actually a doctor before
Yeah.
he acted upon his creative, um, whatever. Like,
See, those guys are smart. Like, they're actually have a backup plan and everything. I almost didn't even have a backup plan. I just went.
well, I
And
mean,
so
I would argue that finishing college and starting your marketing career was, I mean, you didn't quit school to do band, right? Like that's the moral of the story, and you continue to pursue it in addition to you being a student, right? So I think that's another lesson that we can talk about in terms of, you know, for the young folks listening that want to start a band or think that your musical skills or whatever
I
is
actually,
going
I
to.
actually quit school for a little bit, to be honest.
Okay, fine.
I took
I didn't know that, but
yeah,
thanks for.
I took a year hiatus. I did end up finishing, but it took me 6 years to graduate college, and
Hey, that's the dream. That's like the Van Wilder
that's
dream, man.
yeah, I did it, but it took me 6 years.
What did you learn in that year off? What did you do and what did you learn?
Um, I moved to LA for a year. I got a place in Pasadena. I waited tables. I just kind of wanted to struggle. I think like coming from a middle class neighborhood, you don't get to face like these raw emotions and hardships. And so, there was a couple times where I was sleeping in the car, and like just I just felt alive. And I never was more happier than those moments because a couple times after you play an amazing show or you create like the CD album, and you're just like, wow, this is something really great, bigger than just anything I've ever been a part of. So it was, like my mom always would tell me, like, if you don't struggle, you don't grow and you don't get better. And I don't know why I always remember that quote from my mom, but like, it's like I wanted to struggle. I wanted to like, just like live on the edge because that's when you feel like real emotions. And I think, obviously now I'm a parent and I'm thinking differently in my head, but I remember thinking when I was early 20s, I wanted to just like change the world. I wanted to do all these things. So, um, you know, that was a long time ago now, but,
Hey, it
but
like everything happens for a reason, and I mean we learn
yeah,
something along the way, right? And
yeah.
um, what was that discussion like with your parents? Did you warn them that you were going to leave school for a year to pursue music? And when they found out, how did they respond?
They weren't happy. They definitely weren't happy. Um, but they came to a show. They're like, okay, that's kind of cute. But luckily for me, it didn't end. I mean, it didn't go that long. I mean, I was like um, 24 or 5 when I quit the band, and so um, it wasn't like I was doing it to my 30s or 40s. But just you you come to a realization where you're like, okay, maybe this isn't the best, and then you kind of pivot, and so that kind of naturally pivoted into my advertising career because um, for us, music didn't pay the bills. And, when we make some money off CDs at playing shows, we'd buy it to pay for drinks for people who came out to see us. And we never made any money that way. But yeah, I ended up going into advertising, that was like my full-time job. It was interesting. Advertising was interesting because, it was just kind of dealt with a little bit of that, like that business life, office life, also a little bit of creativity. Um, but like, deep inside, I always knew I wanted to do something by myself, like, create a own business by myself. So
But the band story is cool because the guys that you are in the band with are
yeah,
are all in their own way still pursuing their creative pursuits, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
think I think all of us, we're all creative. I think that's why we are in a band. We wanted some kind of outlet for innovation, for creativity. Um, yeah, that's I think everybody that wants to like go out on a limb like that, they have to be a little bit crazy, right? To put yourself really out there. So I do think that it was a lot of blind ambition and blind passion that I followed, but like I said, it just leads you somewhere, right? And
yeah,
this I mean this whole thing with me and Soul Sausage might have not happened if I not been in a band and met these people and these networks and
yeah,
um, the community that we've kind of become
yeah.
a part of, right? Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
What was it like to go back to school? Was it with tail between your legs of I tried that cool and now mom wins and I have to finish school, or was it let me go back to school and try to figure my life out until I can figure out the next big move?
Like, so I came from good parents. I knew I was never gonna like not go back to school, right? So it was just more like here's like a hiatus, and then let's finish this thing off, and then just do the right steps, the right Asian calculated steps. Let's just at least do that. Like you said, like to shut up my mom and dad, but yeah, like I realized early on that for me, I didn't have to follow these set of paths that were put in front of me, and that's
Mhm.
what I really didn't like. Is I didn't like, um, especially like if you're okay, like when you turn 30, you have this idea of how you want to be. You want to be married. You want to be successful. And I was like, you know what? I don't want that. I want it, my own path. I don't really care what the stigma is about if I'm 30 and if I'm broke. I wanted to just be myself and have my own story, and I think that is like one of my biggest like positives. I think that I like about myself is just I don't really care too much about
Mm,
like what and so like that kind of I don't care mentality just um, in a creative sense, right?
right.
I've been very fulfilled all my life. Like in my 20s, I was in a band and I was happy. And now I'm in my 30s. I get to do this business with my brother, and I get to be creative, and I get to just forge my own destiny. I think that's like, I enjoy doing that. So that part fulfills me, and I think those lessons and values, I just cherish onto.
So
That makes sense.
between your stint at music making and taking it so seriously enough for you to take some time off from school to pursue it, and then your next big venture, which was obviously Soul Sausage, that still is alive and your identity and your baby today. Um, you worked in media in advertising
Hmm. Hmm.
for around
7, 8,
6 years, 7 years.
7, 8 years. Yeah.
Tell me about
Yeah.
that, your progression through there, particularly with the focus of how did you I mean, you worked in a creative field, right? So marketing and it's not mundane work, but how did
Yeah.
you express and get through the days of, is this what I was meant to do versus I still have this itch to do something different?
So I was in media. I was in traditional media, and then I went to digital media. So that's when the internet and online and mobile was kind of coming up, and we knew that was like the thing, right? Before that was traditional TV and print ads and radio.
Mm,
So I was always interested in advertising. I always thought that the way you communicated your messaging and working with companies to kind of push their messaging out to the general public, I was fascinated by that. Was I good at it? I don't think so. I think I was okay. I just kind of floated along. There's a lot of like obviously in any company there's like bureaucracy and political stuff that you have to play along, and I didn't like that because like especially I was waiting tables and playing music for like 5 years, right? And then all of a sudden I have to work with a team, and I mean, so I learned a lot about like teamwork, right? Obviously about just kind of communication, professionalism, and these are at least good things that kind of carried me to start my own business, right? Because if I didn't have that, if Ted didn't have that, I feel like we wouldn't be where we are today. Because like some of the things my brother has, he has like great presentation skills, communication skills. I might have a little more organizational skills and a little bit more strategic skills, and so those skills were kind of built over the years through my advertising career. And
mm,
so I'm really fond of that time, because if we just would have started Soul Sausage when we were like 20, we wouldn't have some of these foundations and structures that are needed to kind of have longevity, right, in your career, whatever that may be. And so yeah, I mean, it was just like an accumulation of, okay, I was doing music, and then I was doing advertising, and then soon, like, this little idea called Soul Sausage came about, um, and so, you know, we started doing events on the weekends, and then it grew, right, and then it grew into another weekend, and then every weekend we're doing something, and then I'm like taking calls in my meeting rooms, right? I'm like going outside taking calls, and I'm booking Soul Sausage events, and I'm like, this is like exciting, So that's when I knew it's like, okay, hey, like, we got something brewing here, and that's when I knew, like, hey, advertising might not be my end goal, because like I'm getting too much excitement doing this other thing, and I'm kind of nurturing this Soul Sausage baby. So that's kind of how the next transition happened for me, which was this sausage company,
Yeah, I mean, but it
right?
wasn't. There's overlap, right? It's not like I quit advertising and then I start the sausage company. As you just alluded to, there was overlap. There was
Yeah.
evenings and weekends and
Yep.
nighttime hustle, obviously, that helped you feel comfortable enough to take the leap. I want to get your take on what the first conversation you ever remember you having with your brother about Soul Sausage. What got you excited enough to even try it and to start putting time, energy, and effort into it as a side hustle?
It was very innocent. It was like, hey, hey, my brother, my best friend's brother is created a sausage, and we're gonna do something this weekend. Do you want to help? I think that was it. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so, like, I just went into there. I was a helper in the beginning. It was my brother and Chris's idea, and I was just a helper. Honestly, when it all started, it was just, all right, let's do this. Whatever. Okay, we're selling sausages. All right. Oh my god, it tastes great. All right, what are you selling? What are you selling? And then that first event that we did, we just killed it. Like we had the longest lines. Travel Channel came and started filming us, and I remember, like, looking back on it, it's just so embarrassing, but we weren't even wearing gloves. Like, like we were sharing. Like, we had one glove each, and like, oh my god, I'm gonna get busted if I ever say this, but it was just like bad. It was like, but I knew that something was special, because this was when, like, Korean barbecue was just
Mm.
getting all crazy. And it was like a rush, right? And it's like we created this little thing, and then so it led us to do another event, and then that event we sold out and it went crazy, right? And so we're like, what the hell's going on? And and then we got like a call to do a catering for like this movie set. I think it was Dexter. Um,
Huh.
and then we got another call from, and then it just started like snowballing, right? And so that's when we're like, okay, like, this is kind of interesting, like, maybe we got something going on, right? Um, and that's when we kind of were like, okay, let's be a trio. It wasn't just me helping out anymore, but I was like a full time member, and then everything just kind of just blew up from there. But yeah, the whole story of Sausage was very unforced. It was just very, like, even the name. It was just like something that we thought of one night. We're like, what should we call ourselves? Hey, we're Korean and we're making sausages. Hey, we call Soul Sausage. Okay, 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 go. And so the whole thing was just like very natural, and like I
Yeah.
never had that kind of energy. Like when you make an album, a hit album, there's energy that you capture in that session, or that during that album, like, creation time, and there's
Mm.
something magical. And I really feel that there was something magical that was created in like summer of 2010 is like when we first did our first event.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and so now it's been almost 10 years,
Yeah.
8
What,
years full time. But
was that first event the Korean Barbecue Festival?
that one was our second one.
Second one? Okay.
Yeah,
I
first one
remember
was like,
that one. And then I shared this with Ted too. It was awesome. It was like, who the hell are these guys? But they
yeah,
got along as line because Hamjibak was there, other people were there,
yeah,
more established, obviously, brick and mortar places, but just the amount
yeah.
of people in general, there was just the energy was amazing.
It was, and it's kudos to Ted and KAC for creating that event. And there's some people that we still keep in touch with to this day, like Jenny Huang and you and like damn, there's can't think of right now, but there's just a lot of people that were there that day.
Yeah.
And Dumpfa was there. Like I mean, just a lot of good energy. That's when like K Town was just kind of getting to get on the map a little bit, and we had Jonathan Gold, I think, was one of the
Yeah,
judges.
he was there. Ludo was there.
Yeah,
I still have a
yeah,
picture
Ludo
with
was
him.
there. Hmm.
I was working the soju tent because
That's
that's just
right. That's right,
that's what I was
man.
doing back then.
That's right. That's right.
Still,
Good times, Barry. That was good
uh,
times, man.
very very good times.
Yeah.
What led to the conviction for you to jump in both feet full time with Soul Sausage, and how did that conversation go? First with your brother, and then eventually with your parents.
Um. So, me and my brother and Chris at that time we were busy every weekend. We were busy with every weekend with certain um something related to Soul Sausage. And so, like I said, man, when I was at my last year at my media job, I was taking calls and booking events and doing press calls and just and like I just book meeting rooms, right? And I'd be like, hey, how you doing? Like, like um and so it got to a point where like we had investors that were interested in investing on us. We started looking for some actual a real physical brick and mortar to go into. And it felt right. It felt right that we should do this full time. Obviously, there was like a little inexperience with like the financial part, which looking back, we were like, oh my god, right? But how are we gonna make money three ways and all that stuff? But like I said, like we was just a passion. We were blindly following our passion, and it felt right, and we just decided to make a leap. We're like, hey, let's do this. And so obviously convincing ourselves was not a hard deal, but I knew it would be hard to tell my parents. So we didn't tell them. We didn't tell them uh, until until like middle of construction, And then we just dropped it one day on her. We're like, hey, we quit our jobs, and she's like, who quit jobs? And we're like, both of us. We're like, oh my god, why can't just one of you guys quit? And uh, but but yeah, like you show your parent that you love something and you're committed to it, and eventually they'll have to come around, right? So when we won the show, and when they saw some of these, when they saw their 한국일보 or 중앙일보 article about us, they're like, okay, I guess this is cool.
It's
you
that
know,
freaking Korean newspaper thing,
it's a
man.
Korean newspaper.
You're
Yeah, very.
nobody until they
Yeah,
feature you.
you're
Um,
nobody until your parents' friends know about it.
yeah,
That's when it's like, oh yeah,
I mean,
my son.
hell, you can be on Forbes or you can be on whatever, but
Yeah,
it ain't real for the Korean adult population until that spread.
exactly, man.
Let's talk about that a little bit. You talked about the show and the truck. That required obviously a little bit more commitment on your end to
Yeah,
live, eat, and breathe this experience. But it was
yeah,
also, in hindsight, and even seeing you guys go through it from a distance, that
mhm,
changed your life literally forever. Because that.
yeah.
So tell us about that. How did it come about from your perspective? What was it like going through it? And looking back now, what did you learn from that and working with your brother?
Yeah, so that was 2012 when we decided to quit our jobs, sign our retail space lease, and then during that time we got casted to be on the show like we were hungover one day. We submitted a video. We somehow got on, and all of a sudden I'm on a worldwide tour with a food truck, right? And so I swear, like the whole Soul Sausage thing was in 2012 was just like I can't even describe how magical of a year that was because it seriously went from like zero to hero, right? It's like you go on the show, I'm like, okay, whatever, like let's just not make a fool of ourselves, and then we end up winning the whole thing, right? So like we had no idea what was gonna happen, and then so when we had the last show air, I think it was a week after we opened our first brick and mortar location,
Wow.
and a week later, right? So people were like, oh my god, oh my god, and then there was like when we opened the doors, it was like seriously like 100 people in line before we even opened,
Wow.
right? And it was like that for 6 months. It was just like every day there was like 60 to 100 people waiting in line, right? And so we're just like, holy shit. And then like, so through the show, we won a food truck, and we couldn't even bring that food truck out because we're so busy opening the store, right? So we were just like, what the hell is happening? And then now it's funny because I think about it and I see like we're trying to get, sometimes we get trying to get like LA Times or like LAist or something to feature like a story about us. And at that time, everybody wanted a piece of us. It was just crazy. And so like we were like kind of spoiled. We're like spoiled because like, like every publication wanted to feature us, and we got calls every day. I had to say no so many times. There's people like the VP of Cheesecake Factory wanted to sign us for and open up 100 stores with him, right? So we were being courted by them, and it was like I was like talking to my brother. I'm like, is this normal? Like, how is this? How like I feel like I don't have to do any work. I just open up my email and there's just like 10 requests for press, like 10 requests to be like an investor, and it was just like I'm like, what is going on, right? So now I'm just like, that was definitely that exposure was just huge because you'd have like moms like stop me and say like, "Are you from Soul Sausage?" And I'm like, "Holy shit, this show is pretty huge," And it's because like a random white mom like kind of spotting me I was just unbelievable. And so yeah, I mean, we started off very spoiled. Like I think even like some of my restaurant friends, they probably looking at us, and they're like, these little spoiled brats. They're like, we work so hard, and we can't even get like a LA Times article, and these guys are just like on every publication, and it was wild. 2012 was a wild year, man. And we started. Usually, a business starts kind of like this, right? Like maybe like that, but ours started here, and then like it went down, and then now we're kind of like but yeah, just for us it's just a weird story because we started off with a bang, and that's not how most businesses start.
Yeah. Hey, but I
Yeah,
mean, you start the best way you can, right? And that's actually not the worst way to start. Obviously, are some um, questions of what is real, what is expectation, what is the future when you
yeah.
start like that. But um, so let's look back at the last 8 years of Soul Sausage. You had a
Hmm.
brick and mortar store, you had the big truck, you had the little car. You guys were everywhere. You
Yeah,
guys, there'd be lines out the door every time I'd swing by Sawtell, and innovating and just having fun all the time. And
yeah.
um, since then, you've had restructures within the partnership. You opened up a new store, you had to close it down. You have
Hmm.
pivoted to a number of different things. And
Right.
now, starting in 2019 until most recently, you were starting to get very, very popular and stable inside stadiums. You've seen
Yeah.
Soul Sausage at the Coliseum, at LAFC, at Bank of
Hmm.
California Stadium, and also flirting with putting prepackaged sausages on store shelves and in freezers,
Right.
and
Right.
doing a bunch of catering under existing and new brands that sort of was looking like that was going to be the way forward.
Right.
And let's try to look at this at least before sort of the pivot of the last 8 weeks of having to figure out how to run a business now. um,
Yeah.
but in the first 8 years of Soul Sausage working with Ted, what are some of your best memories and some of your toughest lessons that you remember, that it was your business partner who also happened to be your brother?
Yeah. So I remember one real, actually a couple of moments where it was really bad was when little Tokyo was having trouble meeting payroll, and me and my brother were looking at each other and we're like, how are we going to make payroll? All right. And so, when you have people's lives at risk and, bills to pay, it's a really big problem. And so, um, yeah, we had to try everything. We called favors, we went to creditors, we sold stuff. I mean, like, Little Tokyo was like our, I think me and my brother, we like to say this, was like our business school. It's where we learned how to basically weather any storm and figure out a creative way to make it happen. Um, and so like I just remember like we were like negative for a little while, and then we had to pay like 10 grand in payroll one day, and like we were just like, but so like we were just like, what do? We were thinking about every possible thing. Um, you name it, we thought about it. And so uh, going to battle with Ted at that time was pretty huge because at least I had someone else to kind of bounce ideas off of. And when I thought everything was going to go down in sync, we always found a way to get out of that. And so that's something that I will always cherish with him because we went to war together and we were just like, how are we going to get out of this? We would make money from Sawtell or food truck and pump it into Little Tokyo. So, it might seem on the surface that we're doing well, but like, you're putting money out and you're kind of moving around and that's dangerous, very dangerous, right? So, just I can't even list all the times that we had to like kind of just think of something creative to do to get out of those situations. But we sure enough did. And so like basically like I feel like, because we went through those battles, like we could do anything, like me and my brother really like, we're like cockroaches. We don't die. We found ways to kind of pivot and repurpose ourselves. Cause like when you think about it, right, like we've been at, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but we've had two food trucks, we've had a Scion, we're at stadiums, we're at 3 stores, we've had all these different avenues to find us. So we're always constantly thinking about how to feed people in LA and how
Mm.
to feed the new modern customer. And so that's like kind of like one of our things where it's like, how do we reach people in the new age, right? And even with this COVID thing, how do we package something so that people will have a good feeling and enjoy some good food that kind of represents this Korean American like cuisine, right? So so yeah, I guess like there's no like one incident because we've been through so much like crap, right? But it just for me like knowing that there's 100% trust. I think that's been the biggest thing is like
Mm.
you might go through a lot of ups and downs, but then like how many times can you truly trust your partner 100%, right? You might think that he has ulterior motives, or he might want to help his own brand or image or his own ventures, right? But how do you really completely trust a partner to like almost go to battle with? So I think that's been like one of the craziest moments of our career path is that we've been doing this for 8 years, but like the last or like 2017, 18 were like the toughest years of our careers in our lives. But we overcame that and we turned a corner. And in 2018, we started like focusing on catering business. And that was really starting to take off until the whole COVID thing hit. And then so now we had to repivot again. And we've introduced like a new program that you've been promoting a lot. Thank you. And just
It's good, man. Promotes
yeah,
itself.
we're just like I said, 2012 was like the years where we just blew up, and like so like we're going to all these parties and we thought we were hot shit, but business there's moments where you have these flashes of brilliance, right? And you have to really capitalize on that. And so that's something that we learned, and we're waiting for that next big splash, that moment that will catapult us again. And I guess that's the part of business. You gotta,
Yeah.
there's 9 bad days and 1 great day.
Yeah, it's look, I've been lucky enough to have a seat, not a quite a front row seat, but a close seat enough to have gotten to know you guys as good friends and as an observer of the business journey. Um,
Hmm.
and we've talked many, many times about business and what to do and stuff. And
Yeah.
we've had some fun memories together and more coming down the way. And I do want to share with the audience that um, I have never seen somebody, a duo, collectively equally hustle so hard without ever bitching about it than you and your brother. I'm
Yeah, man.
talking
Thank you, bro.
about 4 a.m. drives to Oxnard. I'm talking back to back days at the Coliseum in 100-degree heat, serving crazy drunk people. I'm talking about running into you at office buildings, serving food and hustling and doing the job. Um, that's what people don't see behind the
Yeah.
flashy food truck. That's what, even though friends and the public may have this perception of you guys having an early and almost guided golden entrance into restaurant tourism
Mm.
and having an easy way in, what they may not see through the brand and through all that is the pure hustle and this relentless work ethic that you probably got from your parents and you got from yourselves, and lessons that were reinforced as you played shows and slept in your car and went through life. Life, you know, is funny in the way that you and I are both dads now, and uh, we don't really have an excuse anymore, right? It has to work,
Wow,
and
that has to work out.
I mean, you have employees' payrolls to meet, but you also have kids to take care of, right? Um, and Soul Sausage was sort of your and Ted's baby before you actually had babies, and
Sure.
so it's your, maybe your first kid. Maybe your kids don't want to hear that, but it's the 80-year-old first baby before they came into the picture,
Absolutely.
and then
Absolutely.
hopefully it will be the older sibling that will pave a lot of opportunities, not just for your kids, but for your larger family, for the whole Kim family, man. This has been so fun. This has been really,
Yeah.
really fun. We'll leave. I have a lot more questions that I want to ask you, but we will leave that until you and Ted are both here. Um,
Mm.
I can't wait to see the engagement and sort of the fun conversations. And I hope I'm not hyping it up too big, and then you guys talk to each other and it's really boring, because that would not be fun. But maybe we'll start drinking and then it will be fun again. Um,
Yeah. I'm down. I'm down. I'm always down to drink right
um,
now, sure.
yeah, telling your wife and mine, we need to drink during the day because it's a part of our job.
It is. It is.
It's well, it
You
could
got
be
to be
your job.
social, you know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I want to end the conversation for now and
Hmm.
finish up the episode here in the way that we finish up all of our conversations here on the Asian Americans, which is in the form of a love letter, a Dear Asian Americans
Mm.
letter to us and from us. And so
Hmm.
please share anything that you would like to share with anybody in the community in particular, or just the community at large, about some perspectives and lessons that you've learned. So I will start the letter. And if you could finish out, Dear
Hmm.
Asian Americans.
Dear Asian Americans, I am a proud Asian American, and you should all be proud Asian Americans. Um, we have a short history here in the States, but like people like me and you, we all are listening to this and are tuning in because there's like this fire inside of us that um, needs to be heard, whether it's through food or arts or even the legal or whatever field. It's just really important to represent ourselves truthfully and honestly. So as long as you're following your heart, there's going to be no wrong, but be proud of being Asian American. I remember when I was in junior high school, there wasn't many figures to look at, not many role models, but now there's a lot of progress that's been made, and there's going to be more progress to be made in the future. So um, if you love yourself, there's nothing that can be go wrong. But it's a good time to be Asian American. Be proud of who you are. Everybody has their own voice. Follow that voice, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And there's a lot more work to be done. So let's do it. Let's keep going.
Thanks, Young. Son of an engineer, musician, marketer, business owner, father. Your story's not done, but those are some of the fun job titles that we'll remember you by for now. Thanks for being a good friend. Thanks for being a good brother. It's really, really, I'm going to call you out just because we can. The amount of love and attention and fun you have with your kids, and at least that's the one that you want to share with us on Instagram. Uh,
Mhm.
it's awesome, man. It's really heartwarming for you to. I know how hard you work. I know the early mornings, the late nights, and yet they are your priority. Your family is your
Sure.
priority, and as a fellow dad, and as so many of us who listens to this show are, thank you for reminding us daily what is truly most important about all the work and all the hustle that we do, man.
Thank you, Jared. And I have to call you out because I remember we had this conversation at a coffee shop, and you had this idea about doing this show, and here we are, almost 50 episodes in, and you're freaking doing it, man. So kudos to you. And I know how hard you work. I know how much you love your kids. So let's all keep going, man. Got a lot more stuff to do.
Let's keep going. I will see you virtually
Mhm.
tomorrow for the recap with your brother. I will see you in person on Friday to pick up even more awesome food. But thank you for making time. And I'll see you
Good,
soon,
man.
brother. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. All right. Have a
Bye.
good one.